Fly fishing fast water is one of the most important skills you can develop as an angler. However, between the proper technique, focus, and quick reactions, this is one area of fly fishing that takes quite a bit of practice. That said, if you take the time to learn how to fish fast currents, you'll be opening the door to some of the best, most exciting fly fishing opportunities you'll ever experience. Fortunately,
In this video,
I've compiled 7 of my top tips to help you make the most of any fast water fly fishing situation. Whether it be spring runoff or just a high water year, I'm confident that these tips will help you catch more fish. Let's wade in. Number 1. Use more weight than you think you need. When you are nymphing fast water, you need your nymphs to sink as quickly as possible. Since your drift won't last very long, you need those flies to get down to the bottom of the river, where the fish hang out, within the first couple of seconds after hitting the water. The best way to accomplish that is to add more weight. And when I say more weight, I'm talking way more weight than you think you need. If you find that you are getting snagged along the bottom more than usual, you can always remove a weight or two and cast again. But, in most cases, if you don't get your flies down to the bottom of the river quickly, you probably won't catch a thing. As a general rule of thumb, I recommend adding weight until your rig starts ticking bottom. In other words, your rig is deep enough to start bumping up against the bottom of the river. You'll know you're ticking bottom if your strike indicator is bobbing up and down slightly throughout your entire drift. Just make sure to set the hook on anything that looks a little stronger than a tick. Number 2. Learn and use the tuck cast. Along with the additional weight, when you're fly fishing fast water, one of the best techniques you can use is called the tuck cast. The tuck cast is a casting technique that causes your rig to hit the water before the rest of your line, and thus allows it to start sinking before the current starts pulling your line downstream. To accomplish the tuck cast, you basically have 2 options. The overcast method. With the overcast method, you basically cast your rod with a little more force than necessary so that your line fully extends above the water and your rig bounces back toward you. When your rig bounces back, it will naturally drop below the rest of your line and end up hitting the water first. The lift the tip method. With this method, you basically just lift the tip of your rod at the end of your casting motion in order to raise your line up above your rig. This will allow your rig to drop below the rest of your line and hit the water first. Number 3. Use the high stick method. The high stick method is a great technique to use if you're fishing small, fast streams, or you need to manage your line through tricky current. The best part is, it's incredibly easy and straightforward. All you have to do is lift your rod up high in the air after casting in order to keep as much of your line off the water as possible. This will help to reduce the chance of the fast currents messing up your drift and keep your flies floating as naturally as possible. Another great benefit to using the high stick method is being able to properly identify a strike when you get one. By keeping the line off of the water and avoiding any other potential confusion from currents, you will be able to more easily recognize a strike when you do finally get one. To put it simply, the high stick method eliminates a lot of the variables that come with fly fishing fast water and increases your chances of catching more fish. Number 4. Don't get in too deep. I hope this goes without saying, but whenever you're fly fishing fast water, be mindful of your steps and wade carefully. Faster currents can be a lot trickier to navigate and potentially dangerous while wading, so make sure that you maintain a healthy respect for the current. Again, be sure of every step you take so that you do not fall or take a tumble. While it might be tempting to venture out and find the best fishing holes, you should always fish fast water with caution. Number 6. Walk a fish downstream, when possible. If you can't find a soft landing zone to net your fish, there are a few other things you can do to increase your likelihood of landing a hooked fish. One of these is to walk the fish downstream to avoid fighting the current. By doing this, you are allowing the fish to properly run and exhaust itself, without putting too much unnecessary tension on your fishing line. Just be sure to keep your line tension consistent. And once again, wade carefully so that you don't lose your fitting, your fish, and your sanity in one fell swoop. Number 7. Properly manage your line. Whenever you're fly fishing fast water, try to keep all of your fly line above your actual flies during the drift by mending it upstream halfway through your drift. This will keep your fly line from getting caught in the current and pulling your rig unnaturally through the water. Since fast water means fast drifts, it's critical that you keep your flies floating as naturally as possible. And learning how to properly manage your line through your drift is the best way to do that. When it comes to fly fishing accessories, the seemingly endless number of options can get a little overwhelming. In fact, if you are new to the sport of fly fishing, it can be downright frustrating trying to figure out which items you need and which items you definitely don't. But that's exactly why I'm going to break down the top 5 fly fishing accessories that every angler should own. Number 1. Nippers. Nippers are easily one of the most underrated tools that an angler can have. Actually, I'm going to put my entire fly fishing reputation on the line. To be fair, I don't have a lot to lose there. And say that nippers are the number 1 most important fly fishing accessory you can own. What are nippers, you might be asking? These handy little tools are made for snipping anything from the tag end of your tippet to trimming the hackle on a dry fly to make it look more presentable. They are great little tools that should be in every angler's arsenal. Sure, you could use a knife or your teeth. I'm not that much of a man. But why go through all that trouble when you can get a pair of nippers for $5 at your local fly shop? Or opt for a higher-end option like these Sims Guide nippers. By the way, you'll never regret paying extra for a quality pair of nippers. Seriously, beyond your basic fly fishing gear like a rod, line, and flies, nippers are one of the most essential pieces of equipment you can own as an angler. Want to learn more about fly fishing gear and techniques to help you catch more fish? Number 2. Waterproof fly box. It is no secret that if you want to go fly fishing, you are going to need some flies, and a lot of them. But you can't stop there. Along with your impressively large collection of flies, you will need a good place to store them. For that, we recommend a waterproof fly box. Not only will this keep your flies protected from everyday wear and tear, but it will make your life much easier when you need to swap out a fly on the water. I mean, who really wants to spend their whole day fumbling through a plastic ramekin of flies from their local fly shop? Not me. When filled to capacity, many boxes are capable of holding as many as 250 flies at one time. Though there's really no need to go that big that quick. Number 3. Forceps. Sometimes getting a fly out of a fish's mouth is a lot easier said than done. This is where a good pair of forceps come in handy. These small tools are fairly inexpensive but can be invaluable while out on the water. There are plenty of great uses for forceps besides removing flies from a fish's mouth. For example, you can use forceps to hold a small fly while you tie it to your line. Or if you have fat fingers, the delicate tips of the forceps can help place or remove smaller flies from your fly box. Forceps can even be used to crimp the barb on a hook when fishing smaller streams. Number 4. Tippet holder. Tippet is a very thin monofilament or fluorocarbon line that is used for the final bit of a fly fishing rig. As it is one of the most important components of a fly fishing rig, you need a good and convenient place to store and access your tippet while on the water. Enter the Headgate tippet holder from Fish Pond. This genius little invention gives you the ability to easily carry, access, add, and remove multiple spools of tippet. You can clip the holder on your gear and never worry about losing it or digging through piles of gear again. It even comes with a built-in cutting blade to make your life easier. Number 5. Net retractor, or net holster. Net retractors are essentially tethers that you place on your net to allow you to use it without fear of losing it. When your net is not in use, the retractor holds it in place wherever you attach it. When you catch a fish and need the net, you simply grab it and allow the retractor to expand. However, net retractors are only useful if you wear a vest or a backpack while fishing, since they work best when you hang them from your upper back. On the other hand, if you're more of a pack-wearing angler, you might want to opt for a net holster, which attaches to your wading belt or regular belt if you're wet wading. Either way, having your net at the ready is essential if you're going to do a lot of fly fishing. Fly fishing for trout. Every year, new books are published about fly fishing. New fly rods, far better than anything that has ever gone before, are marketed, new fly lines are invented, and new killer flies are designed and sold in their thousands. The impression is that this is such a difficult, complicated, and challenging pastime that constant innovation, and therefore constant expenditure, is required to enable us to do it better. Although there is no disputing that modern fly rods are much lighter, stronger, and easier to use than the cane rods of yesterday, and that modern fly lines make is much easier for beginners to cast. Fly fishing for trout and grayling can be as complicated and expensive, or as simple and inexpensive as you choose to make it. You can have as much fun fishing on small mountain streams as you can on an expensive trip to catch monster fish in far-flung destinations. You can easily catch fish with a selection of 7 flies, rather than the 7,000 that fishing shops would have you believe are vital to success. And, chosen carefully, 1 fly rod is usually all you need to fish in most places on rivers or lakes. The key to success. The things that make the most difference to success in fly fishing are not the tackle, not the expensive clothing and accessories, but your own knowledge and skill. The knowledge of how and where to fish in various conditions and at different times of the year. And the skill to enable you to be able to cast delicately and accurately in the kinds of places where the best fish live and feed. Fly fishing techniques and tactics for trout. Many of us start fishing on stocked ponds or lakes for rainbow trout, or occasionally stocked brown trout. Such places are perfect for beginners unhampered as they normally are by high banks or trees immediately behind where you are trying to cast, and also without the added requirement of managing a fly line and fly in a fast-moving current. Stocked fish are also generally easier to catch, having been raised in highly protected hatchery areas with no need to learn the hard way, as wild fish must do, to avoid the numerous predators they encounter in wild rivers and lakes. Moving on from stocked ponds to fish for wild trout in rivers is a huge rite of passage for most of us, and requires much grit and determination. There is the waiting to take into account, along with the problems of casting to rising fish, which are holding station in often fast-moving water. Unlike our flies, which, even cast accurately to a rising fish, stay within the fish's vision range for a split second before being whisked away from it by the current. As if mastering these difficult conditions are not enough, there is also the question of where to cast, especially if there are no visible fish. This is called reading the river. And unlike casting, which can be learned by a diligent person in a few months, learning where and how to fish a wild river is an ongoing learning exercise, and one which only the rivers that we fish and the fish that we catch, or not, can teach us. Wild fish are all cowards, and the bigger they are, the more cowardly they have been, and still are. They do not grow older and larger by hanging around to check whether or not the sudden movement above them is an incompetent angler trying to cast or a heron. Not only does this mean that we must behave and move with the utmost stealth and caution, but also that we must gain an understanding of how fish live and behave in order to survive. Fooling a wild fish into taking a dry fly must surely be one of the most challenging, exhilarating, and satisfying fishing prizes of all. Learning to fly fish fast water will open up tons of opportunities for you as an angler. And if you take the time to learn these 7 tips, I'm confident you will catch a bunch of fish in the process. So, be sure to give them a try the next time you hit the water. Remember to subscribe our YouTube channel and also click on bell notification and leave your thoughts in the comments below, and keep hunting.